Alright, hello everyone, it's Mr. Punquist from Epic Bound, and today I want to talk about something the Destiny Content Vault took away way too soon. Something that was used by most players, either for testing or just as a nice place to stock up before hitting the Nightfall. I'm talking about the Tribute Hall from Season of Opulence. So for anyone who doesn't remember, or never played during that season, the Tribute Hall was like a firing range for Guardians. You could spawn any basic enemy from all the races to test DPS, you could access your vaults, and get max ammos for all weapons and supers to experiment with loadouts. It was heaven for build testers, and honestly just a good place to try out new weapons. The craziest thing about it to me is that this was something that has basically been asked for since like the beginning of Destiny 1, and we got it in a random season 2 years into Destiny 2. But sadly that didn't last long, and since Calus and the Leviathan were taken away by the darkness, allegedly, we also lost this Guardian practice range, and that's honestly no good. So while I was flying out to the EDZ to test out a new weapon, I started thinking about alternate locations where this test range could be relocated. My first thought was the farm, obviously. Even though the darkness selectively ripped it out of the EDZ, I honestly think bringing it back with this feature would be perfect. But how would adding enemies to it make sense from a non-gameplay standpoint? Well, for this I looked at other games that had firing ranges to see what they did. Games like Splatoon 1 and 2, or the two CODs made by Sledgehammer for example. In those games, either dummies or targets were used to simulate an enemy. It obviously wasn't difficult to simulate an enemy in COD since every enemy has the same health basically, but what did the Splatoon series do to mimic their varied loadouts? Basically, they had different sized dummies that had the same amount of updated health as needed to simulate an enemy with those specific perks, and I think that's what the farm test facility should do as well. So my original idea was literally just cardboard cutouts of every single Destiny enemy that was in the Tribute Hall, but with mimicked health, and I realize now that that might not make as much sense lore-wise, although I'm 1000% down for Bungie to do it this way because that's hilarious to me. So the next best step would probably be caged test subjects, right? That, however, leads to problems as well. For one, I'm sure the refugees of the farm wouldn't be too pleased with having enemies of the city this close to where they stand lifelessly. And two, it doesn't really make sense. Again, having every possible enemy combatant basically one campaign mission away from our walls just seems like a bad idea, even if they're trapped in cages. In my opinion, the two things that made the Leviathan shooting range make sense was that Calus had access to most of these creatures already due to his hobbies, and that the ship was miles away from home. So, what other Destiny characters would have access to trapped enemies and would be relatively far from home? That's where location/idea number 2 comes in. So in 2018, we were introduced to the Tangle Shore and a shifty little Elixir named Spider. Since then, we've gone to him for basic resource trading and to visit the best boy, but honestly not much else. And I think that's terrible, because being friends with the Reeve Kingpin should provide a little more than a material shell game. Having Spider control the range would make sense, as he would definitely have, if not on him directly, at least easy access to all the enemies of the city. Really, the only problem I can think of that Calus would have over him is a Shard of the Traveler to build super. But if we look at the Forsaken campaign, you can just waltz up there and shoot a piece off if you happen to look like Uldren Sov. And there's even something Spider's shooting range could do that Calus never could. Since hypothetically these would be real enemies stuck in cages and not like enemies stuck in stasis or whatever Calus did to make them not move, we could have them fire back at us or even have them in hordes to test armor and abilities in a more realistic way. Basically what I'm saying is, let's turn the empty tank loss sector into a Guardian testing paradise. For example, that boss arena at the very end could serve as an easy testing ground for groups of enemies, or just as a firing range itself. Put a bunch of cages in there, it'd be easy. Obviously I don't know if that part is feasible, but I do believe getting a test range back into Destiny as soon as possible would be fantastic for endgame creations. I know me and Joel used it a shit ton during the Season of Arrival days, just testing out new metas and setups and really just ways to make ourselves way more optimal. And sure, we can always go back to the EDZ, but where's the fun in that? I like having the test range, it feels more like natural, it feels more like an RPG game, I don't know, it just feels better in my opinion. And honestly, if Papa Calus is gonna be MIA for the rest of the series, Spider would honestly be the next best thing to Calus. That is, as long as he doesn't charge us. Anyways, this is Mr. Punquist from Epic Bound, signing out, I'll see you guys next time.